Let's begin. Okay, Rabotai, we're a few days away from Rosh Hashana, and I thought it would be appropriate to take this Sunday night and look into what Rosh Hashanah is in the sense of how we should be approaching and how should we be spending Rosh Hashanah. Meaning it's a very important day. Obviously, Rosh Hashanah, meaning the head of the year. How do we experience that day? I think that's the real question. How do we go ahead and experience the day that's known as Rosh Hashanah that will be on Zat Hashem, come to us b'simcha on Wednesday night? So we're going to go to a parak in Navi in Tuvim in the Sefer Nehemiah, right? So we know really it's called Sefer Ezra Nehemiah. We talked about that, and in the Sefer Nehemiah, it tells us that Vayavi Ezra HaKohen et HaTorah lifnei HaKahal me'ish v'ad isha v'chol me'evin lishmoa b'yom echad lachodesh hashavi'i. Ezra HaSefer collected all the people. They came back to Israel, whoever was there, the people that were there, right? Not all the Jews returned, that's correct. But all the Jews that were there, he collected them, brought them together, and on Rosh Hashanah. And he started to read the Torah to them.
On Rosh Hashana.
On Rosh Hashanah.
He said that they were not religious at all.
Very good. So as he's reading the Torah to them, they find out, for example, that they're not allowed to marry Goyas. Imagine, they're married to Goyim.
No, it's only 70 years you're talking about, and look what happened. All of a sudden,
they're Nisuim, him, and Hashem Nochriyot. And as he's reading this Torah, and he's telling them today's Yom Hadin, and they realize how many Avirot they have, what do they all start doing? They all start crying. They start crying on Rosh Hashanah, realizing how low they have sunken, and how bad they are, and what bad shape they're in.
About only 70 years.
So then the Pasuk tells us in Pasuk 9, so this is Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 9. It comes in and tells us that Nehemiah and Ezra HaKohen now sees everybody crying, and they come and they say to them, Hayom Kadoshu L'Hashem Elokeichem. Today is a very holy day for Hashem. Al titavelu ve'al tivku. Don't mourn, don't cry. Ki bochim kol ha'am kishom'am et divrei haTorah. All of them were crying when they heard what they were doing was wrong. So it must be they're having charata. They're feeling they did something wrong.
That's beautiful.
They're making tshuva. They should be crying.
I wish today
that someone would cry for doing something wrong. Right. They're crying, which is appropriate for their for what they did, for their sins. Yeah. It comes Ezra and Nehemiah and tells them, Al titabalu, al tivku, and don't cry. And then further, Ezra and Nehemiah tell them, V'yomer lahem, lichu, go, ichlu, eat mashamanim, from the fatty food, ushtu mamtikim, and drink sweet drinks, v'shilchu manot, and send presents, ki kadosh hayom la'adonenu, ve'al ta'atzevu, don't be sad, ki chedvat Hashem hi ma'uzechem. He says to them, don't be sad, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. This is very perplexing.
It's not perplexing, according to me.
Okay.
I'll tell you what.
I gotta get to you. Let's build up the shir.
Okay.
The shir's question at this time is: the people are realizing they're doing sins. It's Rosh Hashanah. It's Yom Hadin. They realize that they have so many sins, they're going to be written in the book of death, Chas Shalom. So they start to cry. And Ezra and Nehemiah come and say, no crying. In fact, just the opposite. Be happy. Go drink good food. Go eat good food. Go drink good drinks. Go and enjoy. It's the day.
I didn't tell him to go to do Averot. Just say, go eat, enjoy, and Hashem will forgive you.
So we have to understand what is going on. Because this is Rosh Hashanah. So how do we understand what Ezra and Nehemiah are telling Klal? It says here, Rabbi Ben Zion Mutzafi, in his Sefer Yimloch B'Tzion, Harei lanu shegam Yehudi sheshakua b'shefel hamadrega v'chataim v'avanot gedulim b'yado. If someone, a Jew, is terrible sin, he's in a bad level, and he has huge sins in his hands, lo yit'atzev b'yom zeh. He's not allowed to be sad on this day. He's not allowed to be sad. V'lo yichaz v'lo yigaz. Can't get angry. He can't. And he's Eila Adarabba. Yismach simcha gedola. He has to be happy. V'yidavek b'voro u'v'schut zeh yiske l'shuat Hashem b'racham. Let's see what happens. Now, this plays out in halacha as well. There's a halacha that's brought down, and Yalkut Yosef brings it down as well. Halacha says, "Hatfilot for Rosh Hashanah yiyu b'simcha u'b'tov leva." The prayers on Rosh Hashanah have to be happy. They have to be exciting. Of ni'ima kiddusham. Why? And this is the point here. Ki potchim anachnu b'yishuat Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We believe that Hashem is going to give us salvation. And He's going to give us the book, write us in the book of life. We believe in that, right? Therefore, there's no crying, as it says, "V'samachta b'chagecha." And when it talks about Rosh Hashanah, it says, "Teku b'chodesh shofar v'kaseh leyom hagenu." Rosh Hashanah is a chag. V'samachta b'chagecha. You have to be happy. And he brings here the halacha. He brings the Sefer Nehemiah like we just brought, and it says, "Ki kadosh hayom al ta'atzivu." You have to be happy. Therefore, he writes that Sheyom Tov Rosh Hashanah yesh bo mitzvat simchat Yom Tov. And if you're crying, it's going to take away from the simcha of the Yom Tov. In fact, the Rabbi Chai, he writes, we know the halacha, just like the person is an avel, and it comes the Chag, Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuot, it cuts it. Same thing applies to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. That means there has to. Why does a Chag take away the avelut to the extent? Because there's a lot of simcha on that day. So Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur takes away also because there's simcha on that day. There's happiness on that day. The Rambam, the Rebbeinu Asher, Rav Sar Shalom Gaon, write that it's forbidden to fast on Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because it's a simcha. It's a Yom Simcha. In fact, the Yerushalmi brings down, why are the people of Israel so different than the rest of the world? Right? If you take a guy goes to court and he's going to have his life sentence, he's live or dead, they dress in black, they're fasting, they're all scared. Right? I remember once, I had to go in for a ticket, a cell phone ticket for the car. I wasn't using my cell phone, but God ticketed for it. And I remember the day I had to go, I was all, I didn't sleep well and think well. I was trying to figure out what I'm going to say. And then the judge was screaming at everybody, right? So you get scared. Klaiso, it's Yom Hadin. And we say, the book of life, the book of death are open in front of them, in front of Hashem. And we come in, we're drinking, we're eating, we're singing songs, we're b'simcha. Why is that? Because we believe that Hashem is our Father. Hashem is our King. And my dad's the judge on the court, right? Everything is going to work out okay. This is what Ezra and Nehemiah were telling Klal Yisrael. You don't cry today, even though you have sins. You don't cry today. Today is the day you have to be b'simcha. You're happy that you're going on the right path, and you know HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give you a great year ahead. Yes, sir, behind.
I told he tells them don't cry because they already cry. And because they already cry,
No.
they're already Choser Mitzvah.
No.
And because they're already Choser
That's not what he said.
Yeah.
No, he didn't say
He
that.
told them only after the cry.
No.
Before
He said to them, Hayom Kadoshu.
Right.
No, because it's a holy day, Al Titabalu Al Tivku.
No, but this after the cry.
Who cares? But he's telling them don't cry
In
because
the
it's a Yom
beginning,
Kadosh.
look, in the beginning he told them, what's going on?
No, he didn't tell them that. He read the Torah to them.
Yeah, exactly.
They heard the Torah being read.
He knew what he's doing. He
Right.
read the Torah. They start crying. The minute they start crying, they're
Okay. But that's not what the pasuk says. Behind the pasuk says, he tells them, Hayom Kadoshu.
So look,
Al Titabalu Al
it's the same-
Tivku.
look, it's the same thing.
Oh, so you're saying
for any
Here.
Jew in Rosh Hashanah,
let me
if he says, I don't care about Hashem, nothing, I'm staying home today, is Yom Kadosh, I'm gonna enjoy my life, everything gonna be okay. No. If he comes to shul, then he shows I'm doing a step.
Okay.
And Hashem
Okay.
see, oh, you're doing a step. I'm your father. I'm your father. Don't worry.
So you're
Go
saying
eat,
very
enjoy.
good.
Exactly.
Not that they cried already, but rather, since you're showing that you're going on the right derech,
Right.
you have nothing to be scared about.
Exactly.
But we're saying it's even more. We're saying it's a Yom Kadosh. You're not allowed to cry. It has to be. It has to be done through simcha. Let's go a little further. There is an Arizal. There's a Chaim Vital writes in the Shara Kavanot that the Arizal cried rivers of tears on Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah. The Halacha says,
So hold on.
if somebody from inside, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So the Shara Kavanot writes that the Arizal would cry rivers of tears on Rosh Hashanah. Now the Vilna Gaon, by the way, he wrote it's usher to cry on Rosh Hashanah. So you have the Vilna Gaon and you have the Arizal. So Moran and Shalom Tzion brought a explanation, and he explained like Rabbi Chaim wanted to explain that what Chamovadia writes that the Arizal also agreed that you don't cry on Rosh Hashanah. You're not allowed to make yourself cry on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is not a day of crying. As Ezra and Nehemiah said, it's a Yom Kadosh. So, says Chamovadia, there is a midrash on Shir Hashirim. And the midrash says that it was Shabbat, and Rabbi Akiva was reading Shir Hashirim. And all of a sudden, Rabbi Akiva starts to cry. He's wailing. So his Talmidim come, and the Talmidim say, Rabbi Akiva, Shabbat. Today is Shabbat. There's no crying on Shabbat. So he tells his students, you're right. But my pleasure is crying in the Shir Hashirim. That's what Rabbi Akiva writes. Rabbi Akiva writes, that's what says the Midrash, from Rabbi Akiva. The Taz explains this part of the Midrash. And he says, since Rabbi Akiva was so deeply attached to Hashem, that when he was reading Shir Hashirim, his emotions overcame him. And through this overcoming of emotions, he started to cry. And that was his pleasure of being so intimately connected to HaKadosh Baruch. So says Chacham Ovadia, the truth is that's what that reason held off on Rosh Hashanah. You can't cry on Rosh Hashanah. But when a tzaddik davens, there's an emotion that takes over him, right? It's so emotional. You know, I sometimes I'm learning in places, and some people would tell me, you're learning too loud. You're davening too loud. I ask them back, how do you want me to learn? How do you want me to daven? I'm so excited. What am I supposed to do? But chill it out. I can't. There's a feeling that comes, right? So that's what Maran Shalom Tzion says. He says, you can't cry. But if you're davening and you come to a point of emotions that leads you to cry, then that was what would be permitted. And he writes, Maran Shalom writes in Yechavedat, he writes, and even Ezra and Nehemiah would permit that type of crying. It's the crying, stam crying that they don't let. But if a crying that comes over from emotion of the tefillot, that would be a crying that is permissible.
Right.
Okay. So on this we're all masking. All right. So what came out of this point is that you cry from emotions of the day, but not that you're crying because you're worried about the judgment, not that you're crying because I have all these sins. That's not going to help it go away. The emotions of the tefillot take you over. What's that mean? If a person doesn't have simcha on Rosh Hashanah, he doesn't believe Hashem is going to help him, and he is going against the ikar avoda of the day. How's that? Because he writes, that's what he writes, and this is from the Vilna Gaon. Shemahutahu, what is the essence of that day? Lehamlich et hakadosh baruch. One of the things that we do on Rosh Hashanah is we coronate Hashem that He is King of the world. Says the Vilna Gaon, if you're going to say Hashem is King, and that's the day you're coronating Hashem as King, then how are you behaving that day? If you're upset, it's like when Trump wins, right? And then all the people are upset about Trump winning, right? They're not happy in his presidency. Imagine if a person on Rosh Hashanah is upset and sad. What do you mean? Hashem, we say Hashem is King. Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimloch, the Olam Ha'ed. And what? He's sad that day, Hashem. So therefore, he says the whole mahutz of the day is that Hashem is King. And if Hashem is King, you have to be happy about it. In fact, the Vilna Gaon writes, that's what we say, Yismechu b'malchutach. Be happy in Hashem's kingship. And he says, shofrot, the blowing of the shofar, is saying Hashem is the king. We're coordinating him, toot, 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 like you're making a king in a procession. He says, when the shofar is blowing, during the musaf, during malchut, when we say the kingship, a person has to be by the biggest simcha on Rosh Hashanah. That's why the Vilna Gaon said no crying whatsoever on Rosh Hashanah. You can't, because it's a day has to be kuli v'simcha. Because Hashem is, you're saying Hashem is king that day. He says further, says Ramin Tzion Mutzafi, Ulhamin bo shehu aviv umalko. You have to believe that Hashem is your father and your king. Imhu avicha ohavecha. Would it ever come in your mind that your father will put for you gizerot raot? Sure. So a person's job, he says, on Rosh Hashanah is to believe b'simcha that Hashem is going to give him the right judgment, knowing that it's Hashem's day of kingship, and you have to be happy that day. So hold on. We can't go too far. Hold on. Now,
when you mamlich Hakadosh Baruch Hu, making shish kebab is too low. You have to sit home with the table.
So let's see what he says. Let's read. Lefika b'lei Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, on the day of Rosh Hashanah, miyad la'achar stim tzvat arvit yemehir adam levo b'tov simcha v'tov libav, and he should come home right away, happiness. V'yarchik me'itoy agom ha'anacha, and stay away from any problem. And he comes home right away, and he says, Shana Tova M'vorechet, let everybody. Shana Tova. Doesn't waste any more time. He doesn't think about anything else. You don't want to get into any other conversation. You don't want to get into any other problem. No issues. On Rosh Hashanah, don't say what I pay tuition to your school for. You don't know Divrei Torahs. You don't say on Rosh Hashanah why this is not clean, why that's not clean. Why I came home, this not like that, nothing. Everybody, quickly,
What's going on?
you come home and you get ready. You get ready to start what? What do we do when we get home after Kiddush and Challah? What do we start? With Simanim. Right? We take out, after Hamoti, we take out the signs. And what do? So Gemara tells us. You take out all these different Simonim. And we eat karti and silka and upaya and rimon and buach v'dvash, all these different sweet things. What's the reason for this? Right. So we spoke about it a week and a half ago. we spoke about it. Chai Adam, the Mordechai, and then he explained that the reason for the simanim is as follows: that the Ramban tells us a lot of times we have neviim that Hashem gives them a nevuah, and when he gives them the nevuah, he tells them go and do an action. Like when Yirmiyah was writing about the destruction of the temple, the destruction of Bavel, he says, go take the scroll that it was written on and throw it into the water, and this way it represents that they'll be destroyed. In action, until a gezerah leads to that. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to say the gezerah should be good, so we're going to do an action that shows the gezerah are going to be good. All right, so once it was explained to me as follows. Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year, right? It's the start of the year. And the Rosh of the year is a siman what the rest of the year is going to be. It's like a person who has fresh, wet cement, right? When you have fresh, wet cement, when it's wet, you can shape it, right? Any way you want. You can make design on it, you can make lines on it, you can write something in it, and then it hardens and it stays like that. So that's Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, on that day, you have the ability to affect the rest of the year. You have the ability to affect the rest of the year. And so on Rosh Hashanah, we do the simanim. And what do? We eat stuff that are sweet, stuff that are good, stuff that are protected. Now, I just want, before we continue on this idea of simcha, I want to bring two other ideas about eating these simon Rosh Hashanah. Number one, Lavi sent me a clip from Rabbi Biederman, who brought an interesting idea. He said that the truth is, the simanim can mean anything. Karti, right? It could be karti to the goyim, it could be karti to the Jews. Everything that you take is silka, is salek for them, salek for us. Who's it salek? So we switch it, right? If it's something good, ours zuchutim. If it's something bad, to the goyim. Says Rabbi Biederman, you know what we're really showing on Rosh Hashanah with these simanim? You know what he says we're doing? We're showing the koach hatfilah. You can have something bad in front of you, but with the appropriate koach hatfilah, you can make it go in the direction of the people who need to get the bad stuff. Hezbollah and Nasrallah and all those other crazy ones. Okay? you can send it all that way.
There's no guy named Nasrallah. Just said
Not anymore.
I saw Nasrallah going up.
No. But
no, I saw him with knafayim going up to Hashem.
Okay.
So,
now I will I'll tell you one more idea before we continue on our topic. It was many years ago. I was a young man, maybe 18, 19 at the time, and a question dawned on me, and I had this question for many years. I'm like, you take a look at the Hirat songs, they're pretty morbid. All our enemies should be destroyed, and all our enemies should be wiped out, and all our enemies should be like this and like that. And like we're focusing a lot on our enemies. And I always thought, like, why so much of the enemies? Say something good about us. Why are we focusing on the evil? And then this past year, right, what happened? And this year when it comes to Shana, I said, now I understand it. We have to say this. We have so many enemies on all these different fronts. We have no option but to say that Hirat songs that all enemies should be destroyed. You have to, all the fronts that we have to fight the war, each part needs a different Hirat song. And therefore we have all these Hirat songs that are focused that way. This is an idea that after so many years of thinking about it, I finally came to this realization. Okay, but now let's go back to this. So, based on this idea that the beginning of the year is like the wet cement and you get to shape it, the halakha comes and tells us an important halakha that we have on Rosh Hashanah. And what's this halakha? You might pick it up. The halakha tells us on the night and the day of Rosh Hashanah that a person has to be very careful. A person has to be very careful not to get angry on Rosh Hashanah. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Because if a person gets angry on Rosh Hashanah, what's going to be his siman for the whole year?
Angry.
He can be an angry guy. They'll be screaming and yelling the whole year. Who wants an anger? And you can say stress levels, your cortisol levels, all these different problems are going to happen. So what is a person supposed to make? He wants to make his whole year sweet. What does he do? On Rosh Hashanah, he doesn't get angry. On Rosh Hashanah, he's only happy. You're happy when you shake the wet cement the whole year is going to be b'simcha. I want to share with you two beautiful stories that Chacham Ben Zion Mutzafi brings in the Sefer Yimloch B'Tzion. This is Abutai. He writes over here, Ben Zion Mutzafi writes, his mother told him a story. She says that the first year that she got married to his father, right? The first Rosh Hashana was 3 weeks after the chuppah. And Erev Rosh Hashana, when it came time for candlelighting, she said she got a machshava. She got a thought. Her thought was, light is so nice. It's so bright. Candles are so nice, so bright. And there's a lot of or, and it brings bracha, and it brings shafa. It's such a nice thing. So you know what? I'm lighting up the house. She went all over the house, putting candles and candles and candles and filling it up with oil to the top. And she put it all over the house. She says, and at the time I did it, she said, I didn't think anything of it. She says to her, then your father came home. And I realized, she said, I still didn't realize what I did wrong until a little bit after the meal. All of a sudden, I see your father wanting to go to sleep, but he can't because I lit up every room with light. And so he's trying to sleep and he can't sleep. And I feel bad. He's got to go to shul in a few hours and he has a kavanot or shoshanat tefillot. It's all over the house. There's so much light. So what's their house? They didn't have 10 rooms. Yeah. They didn't have 10 rooms. They had 1 room. She says, I realized that now I'm not letting him sleep. And she says, you know what? Your father didn't say a word. He didn't even make a sign, a symbol. He didn't even indicate it. What did he do? He used his time properly. Took their svarim and was reading. That's it. He said, I realized afterwards my mistake. And the second night, I just lit the little candles, and that was it. I didn't light any more candles. He says, so he says, you see, he couldn't sleep. And this is a man who I'm sure his davening is at an extremely high level, his kavanot that he can have. And here he was, not being able to sleep, not even having the proper kochot, and nothing. Quiet. Damshi, don't say anything. Listen to this. That story is amazing. Listen to this story. When I read it, I read it 3 times just to understand the godless of the story. Says Rabbi Tia Mutafi a story about his father's Rebbe, Harav Yehuda Pitaya, was a great mukubal. And it happened that year in Baghdad, the weather was very, very hot in Rosh Hashanah. Very hot. And at that time, there was no air conditioning.
Usually in Baghdad,
there was no fans.
But this year was very, very hot.
So what did they do to try to cool down?
They go on the balcony.
So they go on the roofs.
They go on the roof.
They go on the balconies. They go on the roofs higher up. And the nighttime, it gets cooler and they cool down. So they decided on Rosh Hashana, they're going to have the Su'udah on the roof.
On the balcony.
So he says,
it's not the roof, it's the balcony.
The top of the house.
Yes, right.
So they go up there, and he comes after shul, and his wife already lit the candles there. And as he's up there, he's trying to take off, one of his jackets. And his wife, who set up the candles, she didn't put it in the proper place.
Oh, wow.
And he ended up
burning the jacket.
He ended up putting his hand in the hot oil. And while he was doing that, he knocked down the candles, right? And the lights went out. And the hot oil went all over him, his face, his hands, everything. And his wife didn't put the candelabra in the right place. He kept quiet. He didn't say anything. Then his wife realizes the candle's out. So she goes downstairs to where the fire is to bring another candle up. Mind you, they have guests. They bring up the second candle. She puts it. Everyone now has lights, and they see that he's all burned. Everybody's quiet. They're all shocked. They see him all burned. He's looking around. They're looking around. And what does he do? He starts laughing. He starts making jokes. Everybody calms down. Story doesn't end there. Story goes. Now listen to this. Listen. The Suda starts, and it's up to the wife starts to bring the marak ubasar. What's marak? Soup. Brings the soup with meat inside. She starts climbing the steps to the roof, to the gag.
Everything went down.
And as she's bringing it, she's on the final step, and the whole thing spills. Okay? It spills.
The food.
It spills on him. So now he gets up, right? And they decide they have all the food. This is their food. This is their food. They're not like, tell you have a refrigerator in the pantry, you get food again. So they try to find pieces of the meat that didn't hit the ground. So he gets up, burnt from the soup, burnt from the oil, and he starts to help get the pieces of meat that are still okay to eat. And he puts it on the tray. He puts it on a tray, they put it on the table. And finally everyone's calmed down again. And Harav Yehuda B'taya says, you know what? I want to eat one piece of meat. Simchat Yom Tov. He goes for the piece of meat. As he goes for the piece of meat, a cat out of nowhere comes out and takes his piece of meat. All the pieces of meat, and the cat runs away. This is a true story. Listen to this. Okay, so Pitom Chatul comes and Uvazut Mashachet Basar v'Achalo. He takes all the meat and he eats it. Listen to this.
He was hungry.
So now, Rabbi Yehuda Petaya. Oaz Kara Rabbi Yehuda b'kolam b'simcha. He screams now out in happiness, and he says, "Satan, Satan, yodei ani shebayom hakadosh hazeh bata lechan lagizeni umasoteni she'evor al ratzon bori v'tztaer." I know you, Satan, are coming to me now on Rosh Hashanah to bother me, to make me all this, so that I should become angry. You're not going to be matzliach. You're not going to make me angry. Not the candle burning him, not the soup burning him, not running out of food because the cat stole his things. Nothing was going to get him angry. Yeah, Mashiach, says Rabbi Yehuda Petaya, Ani esmach hayom hazeh simcha gedolah umiyad patzach b'shirah v'zimra. And he starts to sing songs. He's burnt head to toe. There's no food. It's Rosh Hashanah. And he's singing. Because today, he says, is Yom Simcha. I am not going to let the Satan get to me. And he says, it's recorded. Layamim hitbateh v'amar. Kim olam lo hayta lo shana mutzlachat u'vorechet v'ruchniut v'gashmiut kot hashana. That year was the most successful year he ever had in his life. Because all these things came to him and he kept b'simcha. That is the Avodah Hayom. It's a day of simcha. And don't let anyone take away the Avodah Simcha. The Satan comes and he's going to make you like this and like that. You don't let it. Now, Rav Tzion Mutzafi, he says, he understands that not everybody is this high madriga. Not on this high level. But he says, you know what's in your level? He says, you know what's in your level? Shelo litzaer achirim. V'lo lahavi'am chalila lidei kaz. Maybe you can't control yourself, how you react, he says. But you can definitely control how you act to others. You don't make other people angry on Shana. You know what you can do. Everybody knows how to push their family members' buttons. We're experts at this. We know exactly what to say, when to say it, how to say it, where to say it, and you can really get people into the fighting mood. Okay? He says, you may not be able to control how you react, but you can at least control how you act to others, and don't make them upset. And he says, and this answers another question that I had. The Ben Ish Chai brings down, you can't get angry on Rosh Hashanah, right? So the Ben Ish Chai says, therefore the woman should have the table ready. I said, why are we talking about the woman? Right? Why didn't you say the husband should stay b'simcha? So another stamp shot here. From what we're saying, he's saying perhaps you can't control the way you react, but people can control what they're doing, right? In that sense, meaning it's not just the lady has to prepare the table, but you should act in ways that don't make people upset in Rosh Hashanah, right? You do the most in your ability not to make other people's angry on Rosh Hashanah. That's what he's saying over there. And that's why he formulates the halacha the way he does. It's not picking on the lady, so to say, but he's saying a mashal of one of the things that you can do to prevent kas. Now, we've spoken about this many times, that if a person, first of all, a couple should work together to figure out how and what they're doing, okay? One of the things is, I've seen sometimes in Shalom Bayit issues, that this is exactly, this is a big point of contention in Shalom Bayit issues. The husband says, I come home from shul, table's not ready. Wife says, table's not ready. All day I've been busy, I got no help. That's why your table's not ready. And back and forth, and that's the whole Shabbat gone. Okay? The whole fight's going to be. So, when I say, this can be an issue. Person who has chokhmah, he has his eyes in his head, prepares in advance, figures out what he can help with, what he can't help with, tells the kids to do, put people at work. You have, Baruch Hashem, big families, everybody can do something. Nobody's lazy. If they're lazy, you make them not lazy. Okay? And they put in ways that thing happens. And this way, when it comes time, everything is that. And if it happens that it's not ready, you have, like we always say here, you have two options. You can go and help, all right? Or you can go and learn on the side. That's your two options. There's nothing else to do. Either go learn on the side, wait for it to happen, or go and help. I would suggest the help. I would suggest the help. Personally, I would help. That's what I would do. But I understand there's certain hardliners that we have here that help. Right? So tell them, rather than your help is by not doing anything. Just sit on the side and wait. Okay? That would be your form of help. Okay. Now that we dealt with these ideas, I want to just say one more yesod about simcha before we go into a general idea of simcha. So far, what ideas do we have? First of all, we saw that the day itself is a day of simcha, right? That's a mikra kodesh. That's a yom simcha. That's the day itself, the simcha. Then we saw the Vilna Gaon, that it's coronating Hashem on Rosh Hashanah, and if you're coronating Hashem as king, then you better be b'simcha, because that shows you love him. Otherwise, whatever relationship you have with Hashem. Then we saw the idea of the simanim, of the wet cement, that it is going to be for what the year is going to be. Now, one more idea of why it has to be b'simcha Rosh Hashanah. We know Rosh Hashanah, Yom Hadin, and we're supposed to take Kabbalahs, make tshuva. So the Baal Tanya tells us a very important yesod. Gam mitzvat hatshuva ena na'aset mitoch yagon ve'anaha. You don't do tshuva from sorrow and pain. Okay? It has to be mitoch simcha. It has to be mitoch simcha. Okay? Says the Baal Tanya that there has to be charata in doing tshuva. You have to feel regret. But it's not just being regretful and being depressed. Tshuva means I'm returning to Hashem. In the Torah, it tells us, why will these curses come our way? Because we didn't serve Hashem with simcha. Tshuva means I'm going to serve Hashem with simcha. And so tshuva on Rosh Hashanah, says the Baal Tanya, is to be b'simcha, to serve Hashem b'simcha, because that is a true tshuva. It says Cham Ben Sion Mitzavi, he says it's a similar point, but he says if tshuva is a mitzvah, then how are you supposed to do every mitzvah? B'simcha. So two things here, two amazing ideas of tshuva. First of all, tshuva is a mitzvah. Mitzvahs have to be done b'simcha. It says about Tanya further that tshuva in itself is serving Hashem b'simcha. So now you have here 4 reasons of why Rosh Hashanah is a Yom Simcha. It's a happy day. That is the service of the day. That's how you're supposed to be b'simcha. You have to be happy on Rosh Hashanah. It has to be done b'simcha.
How tshuva could be b'simcha?
We just said
somebody did something wrong.
You have to have
Now
charata.
he's coming with a laugh.
No,
I'm sorry.
that's
I'm
no.
sorry.
You're not understanding what I said. That means you didn't understand the word I said.
What?
Simcha in tshuva is as follows.
Yeah.
Baal Tanya explains. A is I have charata. I realize what I did is wrong.
Yeah.
Now, what does tshuva mean? I'm coming to Hashem to serve Hashem besimcha. Not laughing about it and saying, whatever I did wrong. No, I'm changing the way I act towards Hashem. I'm now going to serve Hashem besimcha. That is what tshuva is. And then tshuva says, is a mitzvah, and every mitzvah has to be done besimcha. So it has to be done besimcha. That's tshuva. Tshuva is besimcha.
So on Rosh Hashana, we're allowed to do teshuvah? On Rosh Hashana.
It's a day of tshuva. It's Yom Adin. You have to take Kabbalah. So we don't cry and do these type of things, but it's a day that we're improving ourselves. It's a day that we're changing ourselves. And that's the tshuva he's talking about here, is that it's a day that we are coming to serve Hashem with simcha. Okay.
But usually tshuva, it starts, first of all, be'irah, and then besimcha.
Oh.
Because who...
So that's what we said. You have the charata, and then you have the simcha of serving Hashem.
If you could combine all together. All right.
Okay. Now, I would like to end this hashkafic portion of the shir with one more idea when it comes to simcha. Says Chacham Ben Zion Mutzafi, Midat hasimcha umaloteya einan inyan limei hadin kadoshim bilvad. It's not just Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur that has to be b'simcha. Hasimcha hi segula gedola v'hivasha mikol tzara v'tzukah apokedet et ha'adam. It's to help a person with everything. Being b'simcha helps a person with everything. B'chol yomot hashana. In all the days of the year, a person should work hard to be b'simcha. And he writes here, how do we see this? We see this in Tanakh, in Sefer Eov. All right, good old Job, right? It's in English, Job, right? Job. It's a good old Job. So Eov, he had a big mishpacha. And in the psukim there, when all his children die and all these things happen to him, look what he says. He says as follows. Ki pachad pachadti vaye'ateyeni v'asher yagorti yavoli. What is he saying?
Whatever I was fear, it came to me.
You hear what Eov said? Whatever I was being scared about,
I got it.
Whatever I was fearful about, that's what came. Says Chacham Ben Zion Mutzafi, here is the proof. If you think negative thoughts, negative things come your way.
Oh.
Negative things come your way. Eov was always scared about his family. And he said, he was always scared something bad's going to happen to his family. He was always bringing korbanos for his family. He was always bringing worried, bringing korbanos. I want my family to be okay.
He did good.
No, he says because of that, all these things happened to him. Yeah. But you know why it's
not true?
And then he says even further to this. He says, according to the Gemara Baba Batra, who was the mother of Eov's children? So he writes over here that Dinah, Bat Leah, is Eov's wife.
So how many people she got married?
According to the Gemara Baba Batra, Dinah is Eov's wife, the mother of his children. And he writes over here, and he writes that the zchut v'lo yiyel alehem chashivotam tzikatam linatzel me'amavet ki hu nigram mipnei pachto shel Eov avihem. Even though they had zchus tzadikim, they had what yichus, it would not help. because he kept thinking bad things are going to happen to his family.
You know what?
Bad thoughts
I don't know.
destroy.
I don't agree. You know why I don't agree?
He doesn't agree.
No, you know why I don't agree? Because the whole thing started because Hashem told the Satan, did you see my tzaddik here? That's how he take from him this, take from him this. It's nothing to do with the korbanot.
Exactly what I thought was going to happen happens. Okay, now listen. So there's actually a beautiful sefer. There's actually a beautiful sefer written by the daughter-in-law of Chamabadia, and it's called "It's All in Your Mind" by Sarah Yosef.
For a man or for a woman?
You can read it. It's open for everybody.
All in your mind.
It's in English.
Woman has a
mind. Hebrew. And in this book,
it's actually one of the best books.
Robert, what do you want to say?
Very, very good book.
Very, very good book. So we have someone who read it here. It's a very I never read the whole thing, but she writes over here. He says over here, a way a person speaks testifies to what's in their mind. If a person thinks I can't, I'm going to fail, I don't have a chance, there's no way, I have no luck, then that's what happens. That's what happens. You thinking negative thoughts, then negative things are going to come your way. And he says, not even that. He says even further here, she wants to say. She says, our thoughts about other people also have a tendency to fulfill themselves. If you think your child is dumb or not smart or not going to be successful, then that's what you're putting into your child. That's what they're going to become. Because that's what you're putting into them thoughts. If a person thinks, oh, my husband is unsuccessful, or my wife is such a klutz, or she can't do anything right, then that's exactly what you're going to have. Because that's your thoughts. Your thoughts are making it happen. People go to interviews, and they say, nah, they're never going to hire me. Nah. Or that's what they tell you sometimes. Don't tell your friends and families what you're going to do. Why? If you tell your friends and families what they're going to do, they tell you, you're not going to have a chance. Don't even try it. So now what happens? That fills you up. And that becomes your thoughts. And those thoughts now become reality. That's what Chaim Ben Zion Watzavi is talking about. That's what he's saying. That's what Eo did. He got all scared, and all these scary things happened to him because he got scared. You have to master your thoughts. You have to realize how powerful your thoughts are. Right? For example, I'll tell you, true story. You want to hear a true story? Recently happened to me. True story. So I was driving my car on Central Avenue, and all of a sudden, I don't know where this machshava came into my head, and I got this machshava that said to me, I haven't been pulled over by a cop in 10 years. Took 2 minutes later, I got pulled over by a cop for giving me a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt when I'm wearing my seatbelt. I was wearing my seatbelt, and he gave me a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt. And I'm telling you why. Because I thought in my head, I haven't seen a cop stop me over in a long time. Wait another sheet to drop. That's it. I will tell you. What? Everything you're thinking what? So there you go. So
do you buy lottery?
So the truth is,
okay, he buys.
The truth is that
I don't buy and I don't think. So
I'll tell you what it is. Sometimes our thoughts, we have good thoughts, but in the back of our head there's a little, rational thought that comes and says, come on, you bought one ticket, you think you're going to win, right? And that thought destroys it all. Now, the same thing applies the other way. When you have a bad thought, you have to fight that bad thought. You really have to kick it out. You have to kick it out. You have to kick out the bad thought, and you have to replace it with good thoughts. Now, we know this because the Gemara tells us when a person has a bad dream, right? In his dream, he sees that he's killed, or he sees something bad happen.
To think good.
What is he supposed to do? He's supposed to think positive thoughts.
Down to the water.
He changes it to positive, because that's what happens when you think it's going to become. And so what do? If you have a dream that you think that you died in there? So you have a dream and you interpret it that the bad things in my life are going to end and it's going to start a new life with the good things from here on. You have to know how to interpret and translate the things that you see. That is the power of the machshava. It's not just in Rosh Hashana. All year long, Against your simcha, against your freilich. All year you have to be happy. All year you have to have machshava tavot. And he says over here, he says, this power of thoughts, imagination, this can be so detrimental if it's used in the wrong way. There's a famous story with the Rambam. The Rambam was a doctor, right? The royal physician in Egypt, and there was other Arab doctors that were very jealous of the Rambam. So they came to the Sultan of Egypt and they told him, "Why are you letting a Jew be the royal physician? It should be an Arab." So the Sultan said, "Okay, we'll have a test. The best physician will win." What's the test? Each one will make a poison, and each one will have time to examine the poison, and then they can make a antidote for the poison. So they brought the Rambam, they brought this doctor, and they said, "This is going to be the challenge." The Rambam, they say, he didn't have time to worry about this. He just continued living his life, treating people, learning Torah as follows. The Arab doctor, meanwhile, was working up the best poison he could, at the same time working the best antidote he could. Came the day, they were both brought to front of the Sultan. And the Arab doctor goes first. He says, "This is my poison." Rambam comes, he looks at it this way, looks at it that way. Just give me a few minutes. He goes to his, the medicine room, the pharmacy room, and he makes a concoction. He makes something there. He puts it together. He takes the poison. He takes the antidote. He's standing.
Oh, who? The
Rambam. So now the Rambam gives the Arab doctor his poison, which really wasn't poison. Rambam just put some stuff together that maybe he had in his bag, and just gave it to the guy. The Arab looks at it. He's looking, doesn't know what it is. The Rambam made some fancy poison. There's no cure to it. He drinks it. And meanwhile, he takes the antidote. He's still standing. And now they leave. They both standing. Nothing happens. He leaves the palace, the Arab doctor. And as he's leaving the palace, he starts to think, what did the Rambam give me? It must be, it's a delayed reaction poison. And the Rambam knows I love meat. So he knows he made a poison that when I come home, I'm going to eat meat, and then it's going to work.
Then he killed himself.
I'm not eating meat. He gets home, he's not eating meat. He takes out the bread. He's about to eat bread. He says, "Wait." Well, the Rambam's smart. The Rambam didn't do it on the meat. He knows I love meat, so he knows that I would think it's the meat. And he knows I wouldn't eat the meat, so it's not the meat. It must be the wheat. So it must be the bread. I'm not eating bread. So he starts eating other things. He's not eating well. Days go by, and he sees the Rambam outside. And the Rambam sees him. The Rambam says, "How are you feeling?" He says, "How are you feeling? You look very sick." He says, "I know your trick. Rambam says, "Listen, did you drink any milk?" Right? The Rambam meant that the milk will be good for your health. His face goes pale.
Now he's afraid of
He says, "Milk is what's going to do it. I just drank milk, my first cup of milk." And right there, he has a heart attack and dies. What killed him? Was the poison killed him?
No.
There was no poison. His machshavot, his thoughts, his dimyon, his imagination. That's what happens to all of us. To some extent, we're having all these machshavot, thinking about this, thinking about, Why? Where is our bitachon in Hashem? Where is our positive thoughts, Rabotai? Yom Rosh Hashana is a Yom HaZikaron. It's a day that we spoke about, that it has to be b'simcha. We know that Hashem wants us to be happy. Hashem is going to be there. He's going to give us a good judgment because He's our Father. It's a day that we're going to coronate Hashem as King. It's a day that sets the rest of the year. It's the day that we do the mitzvah of tshuva b'simcha. It's a day that we have to take with us through the entire year. To have machshavot tovot, to think well, to think smart, to do the right thing. B'schut simcha zo, with this simcha that we have, emunah temiman Hashem, yotzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'or mishpatenu, ve'yadun otanu l'chaim tovim, u'usharim. We should see a very, very good year, B'ezrat Hashem, only simcha. Rabotai, We have a few minutes, so we're gonna do Kama Halachot on Rosh Hashanah. I just wanna stop the recording.